game on Sunday, man. I know you're nervous for the Rams, but you got to be a little enthusiastic after being there.
Bro, that game atmosphere was ridiculous. The energy, the electricity. That place was rocking. Anyone was there, and a lot of the Super Bucs fans were there too. Beat Bucs.
Tampa Tones. We are joined by lead goon tonight, host of the Pat and Aaron show of WDAE, Pat Donovan. And it sounds like Stunna is bumbling a little bit. Going to put him on mute for a second until that gets a little cleared. But we're joined by Pat
It looks
Donovan.
like Stunna's hanging out with Cheech and Chong in a car with the windows up or something over there.
It does look like we got a little...
No, my camera's broke.
Howdy ho, howdy hey, how the hell are you guys doing? Welcome back into the Buccateers. Tampa Tones here. It's always great to be with everybody, and especially after the draft, because that means it's nearing, inching closer and closer. It's like a march down the field. You're inching closer to football season. The draft is come and gone. Schedule releases in the near future. I know we're amped to talk about it. I'm alongside Huncho and the great J-Lo as we get into this Tuesday edition of the Buccateers. Going to be a draft special, recapping the draft and UDFAs. You can't forget about all the UDFAs as well, as it seems like not only on the Bucs but around the NFL, they're becoming more and more prevalent by the year. If you're tuned in right now, you're watching via Buccateers YouTube or Bucs Life LLC on Facebook, and we appreciate that. And you can surely catch the replay on Apple, Spotify, Google, and so much more, Facebook and YouTube as well. And if you are watching on YouTube, do us a favor, hit the like button, please subscribe today, and turn that damn notification bell on, so anytime the beautiful Buccateers take onto the screen, you guys are notified. Speaking of notified, J-Lo is back in the 813 after a great weekend here in the 630. We pretty much tore Chicago up, down, and all around. The great J-Lo, my man, my brother. How we doing, brother? Great to see you. Just saw you in person. Now I'm seeing you in computer terms. I don't know what to call it, but we'll call it computerson, I guess.
Nah, man, it was a fun time. I mean, glad to be home, but I had a hell of a time over in Naperville, Illinois. You know, between you and the family, treated me with so much fun. I'm blessed. You know, I got to go up there, and now I'm back home.
Yeah, and it's great to have you back in the J-Lo cave. You know, it's awesome to see you out and about, but the J-Lo cave is always great. Speaking of cave, I can never tell what the hell Huncho's in, if he's in a cave, if he's in the Batmobile, if he's out and about, exploring the damn town. The man, the myth, the legend, the great Huncho. Huncho, how the hell you doing, brother? I'm excited to get to talk to you.
What's up, fellas? I'm outside.
Catch me outside. How about that?
Yo, what's going on, man? I hope y'all enjoyed yourself this weekend. I know it's never a dull moment with Tampa Tones, especially in Chicago. I already know it was lit. Yeah, I'm just blessed to be here. Ready to get on with this Bucs, draft.
Yeah, very excited to talk to both you gentlemen about the draft. We have a lot of good picks to talk about, in my opinion, at least. So we'll break into those. We'll break into the undrafted free agents. We'll just get into the NFL draft in general and all about that good stuff, because there is so much to break down, so much to go over. We did our best Saturday keeping people up to date with the live picks, trying to get you Bucs recaps as well. If you guys missed that, Huncho, J-Lo, and myself had a lot of fun on Saturday, going live for well over 2 hours in our traditional day 3 draft coverage. Go check that out on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Google, and so much more. First comes first, so fellas, NFL draft. All this hype, it's fucking done. It's a dead duck. It's over. And that's why I always say anticipation, you got to enjoy that. You got to enjoy the buildup. You got to enjoy the anticipation, because once things like the draft come and go, you just don't get them back for a very long time. So personally, I enjoy the draft a lot. Whether it was the ambiance and people I was around, the food we were munching, or just the draft itself, it was incredible. And I think Detroit broke every damn record in the draft book in terms of attendance. They damn near doubled the previous record of draft attendance as our guy Pepin Steppin, our favorite Canadian, in the millions and millions and millions of miles away tuning in. Welcome into the show, as always, our guy, Donnie Pepin. What's up, guys? What's up, Steppin Pepin? J-Lo, we'll start with you. I enjoyed the draft. I thought this was a better draft, or one of the better drafts, that the NFL ever displayed, ever put on for us. I thought it was more than just a draft. I thought it was a fantastic television production. Hats off to the NFL for making it be great. The only thing I would change, nothing against her, sweet lady, nice lady, but the whole round of the lady announcing pick, have her go every other pick, get some celebrity picks in there. Other than that, I thought it was a great, great layout. I thought the crowd was great. I thought the atmosphere was great. And Green Bay is going to have a tough act to follow come 2025 because they host the draft next year. Could you imagine 720,000 people trying to pop into Green Bay?
I mean, is Green Bay even big enough? That's the real question. 700,000 fans alone in the city of Detroit. Shout out to the fan that showed up, whether you're a Lions fan or any other fan. I mean, from what we watched on the television, it was huge. And Green Bay is going to have a tough task on their
It looked
hands.
like a rave crowd.
I was like an EDM concert, bro. I mean, it was just so big. I mean, like I said, luckily we were comfortably in the Tones' home, in the man cave, watching the draft. When we saw the crowd, I was like, oh. So shout out to the city of Detroit for putting together a great event. And lots of big things, lots of surprises happened in this draft that we didn't see coming, especially in the first round. We had that conversation when we were watching it on the couch.
Yeah, and J-Lo's right. We were in Chicago, only a hop, skip, and a jump away from the draft, technically. But when I seen the draft crowd on TV, a little anxiety behind that. Donnie Pepin says our drafting was spot on. We're going to get into that and so much more about our draft. I think J-Lo and I will agree. I'm sure Huncho may as well. Speaking of Huncho, we're going to bring him in now. Huncho, if we have you. Actually, he says 1 minute. We'll see if we get him back here in a bit.
I'm here.
Huncho, what did you think of the draft, the landscape of it in general, the crowd, the reactions, the atmosphere, the music? As Richard steps in, happy post-NFL draft, fellas. Same to you, Richard. Hope you enjoyed it and had a great one. Huncho, on to you.
Man, it was hype. I like the surrounding, the atmosphere. It felt pretty cultured. It felt like they catered to each team, and it wasn't a bad crowd at all. I love the whole atmosphere, everything. So I like Detroit, and they held it down. So Green Bay definitely has to step it up and come with it. I don't know what it is out there to do in Green Bay. So we'll see. But I loved it.
Believe it or not, ironic enough, I was just in both Green Bay and Detroit within the past year. I was in Detroit for SummerSlam last August. And it was a cool time. It was a good crowd. It was different, and I appreciated that. A lot of cities feel the same. Detroit felt different. It felt special. Green Bay had a much smaller city feel to it, which I very much so appreciated. It felt like a comforting city. You were on the Riverwalk. So going to be very intrigued to see how Green Bay could handle it and see if they do as good as Detroit did, because Detroit put on a hell of a show. Speaking of hell of a show, Steppin Pepin says, I can't wait to see our running back duo. I think someone else in this pod might be just as excited as you about our new running back. We'll get into that and so much more here in a little bit. But all in all, thumbs up on behalf of, even though he's a pain in the ass sometimes, Roger Goodell did a great job constructing the draft, getting good guests in for the draft, and having NFL Network, ESPN, and ABC collabing for the draft. Round one was a treat. You literally had ABC with the College Game Day crew, Nick Saban and those cats, Kirk Herbstreit and those cats. Then on ESPN, you had, the normal ESPN crew, Mel Kiper Jr. and those cool fellas. NFL Network, you had their crew, Tom Pelissero and the like. So it was very good stuff. Little was missed, and I think Detroit did an awesome job. Speaking of awesome job, quick, J-Lo, you just explored Chicago, and you have a cool story from the Rays game. How was your Chicago experience, and did the Rays end up hooking you up?
Even though we got swept, probably one of the worst in baseball, but the ballpark was amazing. The food was awesome.
Sox Park we did go to, by the way.
Yeah, we went to the White Sox ballpark. I thought it was very unique, different ballpark never experienced before. I've always been used to indoor, the Trop, but going to Chicago, I see a difference. Definitely bring a different vibe. But shout out to Richie Palacio for putting the ball on the money right to my hands. I couldn't believe it. The man's got hell of an accuracy. He could play fucking quarterback for all we know. But forevermore, thank you, Mr. Palacio, for making my trip over to the White Sox ballpark and a hell of an experience. Yes, they got swept. They won last night. The Rays will be the Rays, but I'll never pass up on a chance to go to a different ballpark, different experience. So thank you to Tones and the family for showing me a great experience about Illinois. It's a very fun area to go party in. And like I said, I'll be back up again soon.
Huncho, you should have seen it. J-Lo looked like Rob Gronkowski hauling in a pass from Tom Brady when Palacios threw him that ball. The wind took it beautifully right into the arms of the great J-Lo. So good stuff there. Huncho, we're going to have to get you down to Chicago one of these days, brother. You're going to have to come down and party.
Most definitely. I've been trying to get down there. A lot been going on, and I'm free now, so I can move around a little better. So, yeah, we definitely got to set something up. But, in the meantime, in between time, some of these games that's coming on that's going to be here in Tampa, we still got to run that.
Oh, we're going to run it. You already know I'm going to be there. 3. Yeah. I'm like LeBron. Not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6.
Wow.
Who knows how often I'll be down in Tampa this year. Hell, I might get a timeshare down there for the football winter.
You gotta bring
I might move that. No, I'm kidding. I can't do that.
You gotta bring the fam with you, Tones. You gotta bring. You gotta bring the fam with you too.
Oh yeah, once or twice I'll be down with the fam. Yeah. I'll be down there with E-Mod once as well. Try and bring Olive down there. So we're gonna party. Yeah. Speaking of party, we got JC Allen in the chat. Always a party with the great JC Allen of Bucs Game Day of the Pirate Parlay podcast on the Sick Media Podcast Network. JC, rewatching the pod, me and you had a lot of good convo. I was back on it last month or so. I'll put the link to that show in the description. But I remember discussing with JC. I said, hey, I'd prefer to trade back, but if we don't trade back, give me an interior O-lineman in round 1. That ended up coming true for the Bucs. So good stuff over there. JC is very knowledgeable, one of the best in the game. Always on his inside status rep stuff with the Bucs. So the great JC Allen, always a pleasure to have him in the chat. Hopefully one of these days we could get him back on the program, as he's a great contributor for Bucs Game Day, powered by formerly SI. Favorite Bucs draft pick, fellas? There's a lot of them. Well, not too many of them, but a good amount, a healthy amount. Right on par pretty much. We had a first-round pick. Is JC Allen says Sunday. Oh, we might get a JC Allen appearance. That would be tremendous. As we wait and see if I know JC. It's still SI. I love messing with you. SI, non-SI. I'm just pulling your leg, buddy. But Sports Illustrated, very good stuff. We're going to send JC the link. While we do that, we'll start with J-Lo. J-Lo, favorite draft pick of yours on behalf of the Bucs? We had a first round, second round, couple third rounds, fifth round, seventh round, bouncing around. So good stuff there.
After careful consideration, I was saying Barton was my favorite. Now, I'm liking Bucky Irving. I went back and watched this man's highlight. This man makes people miss. He ain't the fastest, but he will break ankles. So I'm liking what Jason is picking up with drafting this guy from Oregon, who I kind of briefly knew. I kind of judged a height, 5'9". But I went back and watched his highlight. I'm like, wow. this is the guy we need on offense to help, help out Rashad White to get, going. But you get a guy like that on third down, on 3rd and 3, you give him a little screen pass, this man's going to make people miss. And that's what I love about this kid. So my pick is Bucky Irving from Oregon, running back in the 4th round, pick 125.
Huncho, favorite draft pick of yours, whether it's Bucky Irvin or somebody else, where are you going, Hunch?
I mean, I'm been indecisive about this, but it's like the 2nd round and the first 3rd round pick. I like Chris Braswell and the safety Tykeith Smith. I mean, I'm in love with both of them, but Braswell, I just love his tenacity, man. He's a power guy. He gets off the ball fast. I mean, I just want to see, because he was behind 2 studs over there in Alabama. What can he bring to this front four with guys like Vita Vea and Kalijah, and on the other side you got Yaya. I mean, we're creating a young core of fast, physical players up front, and I'm all for it. And I just want to see how his time with Tampa flourished and how do we use him in this system.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how it all works out as well. So much to look forward to in this draft. J-Lo?
No, I just want to add on there with Chris Braswell. Good choice, by the way, Honcho. Another thing I want to throw out there to Chris Braswell, he led the SEC in QB pressures. For a guy to lead the SEC, one of the best conferences in the country, in pressures, and he had 13 sacks last season, I want to add on there. And like you said, Honcho, he sat behind Will Anderson, who was the 4th pick overall, and Dallas Turner, who won the 1st round.
2 high-profile edge rushers.
2 studs.
Exactly.
Real studs.
And, he could have transferred and went anywhere else he wanted to go, anywhere else in the nation he wanted to go. But he stuck with Alabama, which I like, because he's wanting to learn and wait for his time to come. So whether he starts this season coming up or sit behind Randy Gregory, I guarantee like a Yaya Diaby last season, he's going to hop up there into the starting role. So, Huncho, I agree. Good choice. I like Braswell as well. I think overall the draft was a home run, but we'll get to that conversation later. But Chris Braswell, I just want to add on that with
the key point from our commenter as well. Richard, the great Richard, says, I feel like Bucky is someone that is going to contribute in kickoff returns. He may really excel at that with the new kickoff rules. I'm going to piggyback off that. Between the guys we drafted and the guys we signed, Devin Tompkins is surely going to have his hands full in competition, and that's a very good thing. Nothing against Tompkins, but, when he was in the return game the past couple of seasons, it felt like he wasn't all that in a bag of chips. But again, returns are also changing now. You're going to get more exposure in the return game, especially the kickoff return game, kind of adapting some of those XFL or UFL type rules, guys. And that's going to be really intriguing to see if a guy like Bucky Irving or if a guy like McMillan or if one of these other UDFAs try and push. And you never know, maybe Trey Palmer now as well, since we have a guy like McMillan, maybe they're willing and able to put Palmer more so in the return game as well. So, guys, that's a great point by Richard, is the return game. Huncho, you have something to say?
Yeah, that's a great point right there with Tones in the kickoff, because I thought last year that Trey Palmer should have been doing more kick returns and punt returns, because I seen him once. He fumbled the ball, I believe, but he is electric when he has the ball in open space. And I think he should have had more opportunities, and hopefully he can get those this year. Also, I'm liking the way Jason Light, how he's starting the draft, or how he chose to draft the 2nd round guy with like I stated already, with the 2 guys in front of him. And he kind of did the same thing with the wide receiver from Washington. He played behind. Yeah, McMillan. He played behind some pretty good guys. You know what I'm saying? So we kind of cherry picked. He had an awesome 2022. He had kind of a slow 2023 down year, but the year before he was on fire. You get what I'm saying? So we probably have some hidden gems in this draft because they had some key stout guys in front of them playing the ball.
And Huncho, to piggyback off your great point with McMillan, he's going to transition into the Bucs slot. So his role won't really change from where it was in college to the NFL, because when he comes to Tampa now, he's going to have Godwin and Evans in front of him still, much like he did at Washington when a couple of those wide receivers were ahead of him on the depth chart. We're going to get to Pep and Step in here with J-Lo. Vita lost some weight, which I don't think is a good idea. I disagree with that. And I respect your opinion, Step and Pep, and I'm not saying it's a bad one, but I think it's good that Vita lost weight for multiple reasons. A, it'll help keep him healthier, help keep him in better shape. We're seeing a football league transition into more games being played, more meaningful games being played. It's no longer 16. It's up to 17. In a year or two, it may get up to 18. Vita Vea getting in better shape will help him stay alive and on the roster for the duration of the season. Nothing against Vita, but he's missed a handful of games pretty much along the way in just about every season now. And he's still an animal, but that's because he's a little bit of a bigger guy. And B, just because he loses some weight doesn't mean his strength is getting lost.
His power, exactly.
Exactly. And it doesn't mean his body figure is necessarily shrinking either, right? Just because you're losing weight doesn't necessarily mean you're going to lose your power, lose your strength, or lose your agility. It just means he's more so putting his weight into muscle, or maybe losing it in other parts of the body where it might not be needed as much. So I think Vita personally losing weight's a very good thing for this Bucs team. J-Lo,
more agile.
Exactly, Huncho. It's going to make him more agile, make him stay on the field more, in my opinion. J-Lo, any thoughts to piggyback off that?
No, I mean, Vita Vea, it was obvious he was kind of gassed out in certain games. I feel like losing a little bit of weight, building his endurance, and making him back to where he was one of the most dominant tackles in our system from 2020 through 2023 to 24. I like the fact he lost a little weight. I feel like he can pick up off where he left off. You got to remember, we're in Florida weather. It doesn't get cold down here until January pretty much. So I like the fact that he's trying to maybe change up what he's done in the past and give me a little bit less weight, Vita Vea, so we keep him on the field more. Because he is one of the biggest pieces to this defensive line when it comes to the
defense in general, right? Big Vita is a key cog to the defense in general, whether it's the front seven or not. Speaking of key cog, one of the key cogs, if not the main key cog, in the Bucs reporting community, covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and really doing a hell of a job with everything Bucs. I mean, from the draft to game day coverage to interviews, podcasts, press conferences, post-game coverage. Now I'm tooting his horn a little too much. Nah, no such thing as that. He is the great JCL and one of many legends. He's like the Miz or R-Truth. He's just a legendary champion at the helm right now. The great JCL. And JC, how the hell you doing, brother? Always a pleasure.
Well, I'm doing great, guys. How are you?
We're doing fantastic here. We're just sitting back and enjoying this Bucs draft as it came and gone. And really, draft season went by quick. And you did a hell of a job, brother. I just want to get your thoughts quick on how you think the Bucs did in this draft. I mean, me and you talked several times, and we knew interior alignment was surely at play, but Graham Barton kind of came on strong the later, as March went on, April went on, and sure enough, he was a Bucs guy. Beyond Barton, though, and including Barton, how do you feel, Mr. JC, about the Bucs draft in entirety?
Yeah, I mean, I think they did a heck of a job. When you look at, what the biggest needs were, you can make an argument that they addressed them with players that not only fit the culture and the scheme, what the Bucs are looking to do, but with players that have a chance to make a real impact. And especially when you start talking about those top four guys, right? Top five picks that they made with Barton and with Braswell and with Tyke and Jalen McMillan, and then also Bucky Irving. Those guys have the ability to potentially come out and right off the rip, have really important roles on this Bucs team. So when you look at that, then you look at the later round with Elijah Klein, who I think has a chance to surprise and turn some heads in camp, and a guy like Devin Culp, who, back when we first spoke with Liam Cohen, he talked about, having a guy that has that move capability similar to a guy like, Gerald Everett or Tyler Higbee that the Rams had, and he fits the bill. I mean, the fastest tight end in the class, 4.47 40. Obviously he didn't have a ton of production, but that was because they had so many mouths to feed over there. So I think when you look at it top to bottom, if you're a Bucs fan, you have to be excited about this draft class. And even more so, if you kind of look back the last 2 years, you get the really similar feel that these guys have high character. These guys have good leadership qualities. These guys come from good programs. And they also, in addition to that, are just great people and have a passion for the game of football. And I don't know if we're keeping track here, keeping score, but you look at those last 2 drafts and how many stars did the Bucs have out of it? Logan Hall, Luke Edeke, Rashad White, Cade Otton. You want to count a punter, you can count the punter too, and Jake Camarda. Last year, Cody Moak, Kalijah Cansey. The list goes on and on. Zion McCollum. There's 10 plus starters. You could count undrafted free agency. You're looking at around like 15 guys, somewhere close to that number of guys who came in that they brought in the last 2 drafts that have been able to contribute immediately. And, in some roles earn starting positions. And I think if you look at this draft, you see a lot of the same. So I expect really big contributions from this draft class. And I think if you're a Bucs fan, you've got to love it.
I agree with that, JC, completely, as we're joined by the great JC Allen, Sports Illustrated Game Day, Bucks Game Day, Pirate Parlay Podcast, everything under the sun. Great draft coverage by our guy as well. JC, a couple of things I want to add. First and foremost, seems like the Bucs suddenly have a Washington connection years late, starting with Vita Vea, gets into Cade Otton, Benning Potoa'e with the UDFA here for a little bit as well. Now we draft this kid from Washington too. Obviously, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. It seems like the list goes on. And then BJC, I was getting nervous for a little bit that Jason Light wasn't going to draft his quote-unquote smaller school offensive lineman. I was having a heart attack. I looked at J-Lo. I go, damn, did I miss something? I haven't heard our small school O-lineman get called yet. Next thing you know, we do draft Big Klein. So between drafting smaller school O-linemen and then this year in particular going back to the Washington portal or Washington tree, I guess you could call it, would you say Jason Light has a type? Is it fair to say he, A, attacks the Washington tree, and B, smaller school O-linemen are his thing?
Yeah, he loves those Huskies, and I wonder if that will drop off and we'll see more Bama players get drafted next year because it was the last year of that coaching staff. They all moved, most of them moved to Alabama. So I wonder if we'll see more Bama guys, but it's a program they know that they get these guys pro ready. And that they know produce high character quality guys. So, I would expect the Washington love to switch over to Bama love in the next coming years as they start to kind of implement their program. But yeah, then you look at the small school guys. Something that's going under the radar here with Elijah Klein is how good he was in college. And he had a ton of experience, even though he's a small school guy. Ton of experience going up against Power 5 colleges, the Power 5 colleges. In his offensive grade last year, out of 628 guards in college, he finished with an 82.5 offensive grade per Pro Football Focus. That was 7th best in the country. His pass block grade, 93.5, which is a spot that he needs to work on and improve on coming in. He's a much better run blocker. Was first out of 588 eligible guards with a 93.5. Run block grade was a 79.9, 14th out of 569 eligible guards. So,
Wow.
this is a guy who, again, I mentioned, I think can really surprise when I was, looking him up. I, and writing about him, first thing that jumps out is size and length. He's built like a refrigerator, as Brian Baldinger put out, but you look at the tape and he's as wide as an ox. He excels in zone coverage, which is what the Bucs are going to be playing. His football IQ is tremendous. Great technique, footwork, is efficient moving in space, climbing to the next level and pulling. And he looks to knock someone's head off. I talked to a couple of his coaches there, his assistant offensive line coach, And he likened him, who played with Alex Kappa, former Buck at Humboldt University or college, whatever it is, and said that he shows him, he's reminiscent of Alex Kappa, which, as we know, had great success with the Buccaneers, went on to get paid from the Bengals. So that's a high compliment. You know, he spoke about him in glowing reviews. You know, he's always looking to knock someone's head off. Let me just kind of pull up my notes here, so I'm not just shooting off the rip. But I spoke with his, as far as his IQ, his football IQ. I spoke to his offensive line coach, not his assistant, but Coach Simmons, and he told me as a true freshman, Elijah came in and learned the offense within 2 weeks, the entire offense. And it's not like it was a simple offense. What he did was he locked himself into the room after practice, used flashcards, and taught himself the offense. So he was ready to go out there and just, kind of know everything and know what he was doing. And that kind of stuff is you either have that or you don't, right? You either have that will and want and ability to focus and give everything to your craft, or you're half-assing it, or you're just kind of going through and putting the time in when you need to. So, if you look at him and what he can do, he can play all 5 positions. He has got experience there. Didn't start any games at center, but did take a lot of practice reps at center. When you look at the practice, every day after practice, he'd gather the entire offensive line and run a meeting, go over every detail of each play. Coach Simmons said he was like a second coach, because during the week, so they would start for the week of preparation, they would go into it and they would have be assigned a player, right? So each guy would be assigned a player. He'd start watching the whole film, then break down his player. Then at the end of the week, they'd have to give him a presentation. And, I'm sure many of you guys saw that, Duke Manyweather shared him up on the board, doing some chalk talk up on the board. But his presentation, he said, the coach said it sounded like a coach doing it. So I've got really high hopes for this kid. I know as a 6th-round prospect, there's not a lot of hopes, like high expectations for him. But I think he's going to surprise a lot of people. I think he's going to give Sua Opeta and he's going to give Ben Bredesen a run for their money at that left guard spot, and may just end up winning it.
Suddenly, the guard spots are tricky. Now I think about it, probably Hainsey will remain at center and just be the backup there. And, the guards might be as they may, JC. And we got a couple questions for you specifically. And our guy Neil L says, what it do? And as Neil always says, make sure you hit the like button, turn that notification bell on, and subscribe as well. But JC, first and foremost, I guess, quickly, does that kind of take Hainsey out of the guard running? Will they kind of pull what they did with Leverett a couple of years back and just keep him as a backup center and not consider him at guard? And
I would think.
Go ahead, JC. No,
I was just saying, I would think so, because we don't know what he looks like at guard, right? And you always want to have at least 1 or 2 capable centers on the roster. So, I mean, he might get an opportunity. I'm not saying he's not, but I mean, the best case scenario is, you have him as your backup center in case something happens to Barton. But, it's not out of the realm of possibility either that they're, coach, assistant general manager John Spytek said that they're going to throw the best 5 out there, and it's going to be competition. If Graham Barton is better suited on this team to play guard for a year and have Hainsey in there, that gives you the best 5, then he could be the starting center too. I don't rule out Barton playing left guard at all. If, they don't like what they see out of Sua, they don't like what they see out of Bredesen or even Elijah Klein, Brandon Walton still on the roster, that, they can move Barton, say you're going to be a guard. And, he even mentioned, maybe they move Cody Moak back to the left side. Maybe he feels more comfortable there. And Barton plays right guard. So it's going to be interesting how everything plays out. I think there's going to be a true competition. But if Barton is the center, I think that Hainsey's locked into probably the backup center. Much like, as you said, Leverett, you can't risk your center getting hurt. And if you have him playing left guard, you don't really have anyone. You got Bredesen maybe, to play center. But again, that his contract and Sua's contract, they're not guaranteed roster spots either. They're going to have to compete themselves.
And that's very exciting. I know it's unfortunate for them that they're not guaranteed, but as a Bucs fan, exciting to hear all these names get brought up. Not that we were thin on O-line, but with the Jensen injury, it made things real thin the past couple of years, and we were kind of pressed. Now you draft a couple more, you reload, you relock. I'm very excited for Cody Mauch this year. I think he's going to have an incredible second year season. And speaking of incredible, we got Cleve and me asking the incredible JC a couple questions, and we got Richard asking a couple questions about your podcast, JC. But first and foremost, Cleve and me has a double decker. Says, question for JC: will the Bucs use free agent market still, or is it pretty much a wrap barring injury? And secondly, JC, Joey's a Colts guy, pretty much ask you: is there any concern on Mitchell from Texas, and what's your thoughts on the media kind of making negative comments and remaining anonymous? Just your thoughts and opinions on both those.
I mean, the team is always going to be looking to add more. Right now, they don't have any money. So I would expect the Tristan Wirfs deal coming down the pipeline because they have to have money to afford their draft picks. And hopefully an Antoine Winfield Jr. I know the two are in a stalemate right now. So there won't be any additions yet. But you do see, like, we've already seen it start, right? Zay Jones just got released after getting a big contract a few years ago by the Jaguars. So teams are going to start looking at their roster saying, all right, where can we trim some money down? Where do we feel comfortable that we can maybe move on from a player? Today marks the day that teams don't have to surrender compensatory picks for signing free agents. So now, it doesn't count against the formula. So now you might see some teams start the second wave. There's still a bunch of guys on there. So the second wave of free agency really starts to pick up now. I'm going to start diving into that. Who could the Bucs might maybe interested in as far as that second wave? But I think you look at the team, maybe a veteran linebacker to compete, like not like a top tier guy, but a guy who's kind of been around and steady backup and can play teams. We talked to Coach Ross today. He doesn't feel like they need to add anything to the cornerback room, safety room. Maybe I could see a move at the safety room just because right now they only have Kayvon Merriweather behind Whitehead and Winfield. Now, they did say they are cross-training Izzy at free safety, and Tyke Smith will be cross-trained at strong safety, and Kayvon Merriweather is being cross-trained from strong to free safety. So they're getting those guys interchangeable, and obviously in a real pinch, Zion McCollum can play there as well. Same thing with Josh Hayes can jump in there. So they have a lot of flexibility in the back end. Maybe they look at safety, maybe they look at linebacker, maybe they look at defensive tackle, but I think that's more on the horizon more than the forefront. As far as, media comments about AD Mitchell, I didn't hear anything. I'm also not close to the ground with like a lot of, big time sources why he might have fell. I think it's a coup for the Colts to be able to grab him. And as far as people saying negative things, whether that's in the media or scouts, you see these quarterback things, annual quarterback things come out from like Albert Breer and Tom Pelissero, and some of the way the anonymous scouts are talking about the kids. I don't, it's not my forte, not my cup of tea. If I'm going to say something negative, I'm going to put something negative in print, then I'm going to have my name attached to it. So
that's why you're the great JC Allen, and he's really the best in the biz. And
Yes, sir.
when you're the best in the biz, people like to know what's next on your plate. And Richard says he has a double decker. He goes, JC, when's your next Pirate Parlay podcast dropping? And then he goes, how does he like the Bucs draft via his versus Patriots draft? And I'll even plug you a little bit, JC, as well. I know you guys are coming out with your own podcast over at SI Bucks Game Day too. That's exciting.
Yeah, so Pirate Parlay will be tomorrow, probably around 11 or noon. We'll be doing a draft recap. I'll be solo dolo, just going over my notes. I talked about Graham Barton. I did an instant reaction, but I'll do my reaction to the rest of the draft. We'll probably be a quick one, not too long, and then we'll start to get the guests ramped back up with some of the players. They're coming back, and the OTAs is starting to happen, and they're starting to come back around. So they have some, they're in Tampa and not focusing more on training and, not vacationing. So I'll start to ramp that up. I plan on having some of the coaches on here Cross my fingers for the person who keeps the lights on at $1, if you know what I'm saying there. And then we'll
was funny.
also keep that rolling. But yeah, Bucs Game Day. We just launched a new podcast, so I'm double dipping in podcasts nowadays on Wednesdays. We've got Rashad White coming on tomorrow. That's at 8:00. So set your timers for Hear the Cannons podcast. Go subscribe, set a reminder. We'll have Rashad White on for about 20, 30 minutes, and then we'll do our own draft recap too before we kind of move on to other things in the coming weeks. But yeah, lots of busy stuff happening with yours truly here. So I'm going to start pumping out some articles here soon. I took a couple days off after, you guys know I had my series. It ended up being 175 players that I did scouting reports on. And I was sitting at the draft, and it was me, Logan Robinson, and Josh Capo. And Josh is kind of hyping me up, and he's talking about, you did a heck of a job, and blah, blah, blah. He's like, how many words do you think you wrote? I went into a full-on panic attack trying to comprehend that I wrote almost 30,000 words in a week and a half doing these write-ups, man. That was crazy. So I took a couple days off, and I'm going to get right back into it. Roster resets are coming up, where the Bucs roster stands. I got these awesome pieces that are coming out. I already spoke with Graham Barton's position coach. I spoke with Bucky Irving's position coach. Obviously, I already alluded to Elijah Klein's position coach. Tomorrow, I have a meeting with Fran Brown, the head coach of the Syracuse Orangemen, or whatever they're called up there. So pick his brain about Tyke Smith, and I've got to get the Washington guys and the Bama guy, and then we'll be I'll have all those start to come out within the next week or so, as well as quick hitter stuff and stuff that I do over there as well. So busy time.
Hey,
Yeah,
quick question.
Go ahead, Hunch.
Once again, before anything, glad to have you on the show, JC, and continue doing your thing. Happy to see you in, man. And I just had a question from the draft. I'm watching the draft so far. On offense and defense, what do you think the future and the direction that we're trying to go with this team? What do you see pretty much from the drafting and the free agents that we bought in to compete now, or just prepare for the future down the line, or what do you see? How you feel about that?
So on offense, this current season, I'll start there real quick, is, Liam Cohen's bringing the 3 wide receiver scheme, 11 personnel. So getting another wide receiver in here, whether that was through draft or free agency, was huge. I think Jalen McMillan's going to be a really good player. You look at what he did last year before he got injured in 2023, and he rivaled Rome Odunze's numbers if he was healthy. Didn't miss 4 games. I think he would have probably gone in the late second, early third round. So I think you got a steal right there of a player. Talking to he's actually the new quarterback coach for Alabama, but he was in a quality control on offense last year. He just, raved about him and thought he was, probably one of the biggest steals of the draft. Even, said taking my bias out of it. If he wasn't injured and put up the numbers, he probably would have gone just as high as Polk did. So there's a lot to like about him, and he gives you some flexibility, right? He'll play the Z this year on the outside. But if Godwin goes, you have someone waiting in the wings in the future. I think with Bucky Irving, you kind of reset that clock, right? White has 2 years on his deal. If Bucky can show that he can be, a really good running back, you've got him for 2 years on his rookie deal after White either gets a second contract or whatever happens there. You've drafted a ton of offensive linemen to keep that going. If Elijah Klein, even if he needs to wait a year, can be that, and Hainsey leaves and Barton moves over, if that's the way it shakes out, and now you have Moak at left, you have him at right guard. I think you've got a really young, solid core. So, the Bucs were one of the oldest teams the last 3 years prior to last season, and they've made a really strong shift to get younger across the board, where they need those older guys, and Levante David and even Vita Vea. I wouldn't call them older. Old, but they've got those core pieces in place. But Mike Evans and Chris Godwin's and whatever, but they do have a lot of youth for the future to continue to develop, continue to put. Just look at Zion McCollum, drafted 2 years ago, was barely unplayable. Last year, he starts 9 games, used all over the field, and now he's your starting right cornerback. So, they've done a great job at identifying guys that they want to not only utilize right away in certain instances. Get them playing time, but also guys who can, continue to develop as they're playing, as they're getting those reps, and eventually, hopefully, be starters down the road for you. So I think the future is bright.
I agree, JC. And speaking of future, great question, Hunch. I think that Patriots have a really bright future after their draft. And we have a question from Richard. How do you like the Bucs compared to the Patriots? And real quick, I'll go through Patriots. I'm a big Caden Wallace guy. He, being a Penn State fan, he was a big beast. And, I thought he was going to be drafted higher, actually. So the fact that they got him in round 3 to me was a steal. I thought he was a round 2 type guy, big body, one of the best players at his position potentially if he pans out well. There were 8 first-round offensive tackles and 5 more before he was picked. So to me, he was overlooked and fell. I thought he should have been better. And B, Patriots kind of went the Redskins route back in 2012 when the Redskins drafted Robert Griffin and Kirk Cousins. New England doubled up on QBs too and said, hey, just in case, we're going to not only draft Drake May, but we're going to go ahead and nab Milton as well. So, JC, I guess kind of just how do you like the Patriots draft compared to the Bucs, or just in general? I know you had them because back in the day, the Redskins folks took Drake May on our pod, so you took Jaden Daniels. But how do you feel about Patriots landing with Drake May? As Gene says, somebody's about to go through a table. Is his internet still down? Olive says, what's up, fellas? Joey says, Chad Gable says, thank you. So a lot of love for JC.
Yeah, I love what the Pats did. I mean, absolutely love. They needed offensive line help. Check. You got 2 guys there, Caden Wallace, and I forget the other guy's name off the top of my head. You need wide receivers. Check. You got 2 of really great wide receivers where you got him with Javon Baker and Jalen Polk, another Husky. And you needed a franchise quarterback. Check. You doubled up at quarterback with Joe Milton, who's got a rocket of an arm. And another guy, you guys know my saying. I've been saying it for years now. Always be developing quarterbacks. ADQ. Always develop quarterbacks. Because it's the most important position on the roster. So you've got Drake May to work with, Jacoby Brissett to bridge the gap, and then Joe Milton to work out behind the scenes. And, that becomes a really good backup quarterback. And, I really like what they did as far as kind of getting themselves in a position where they can, I don't want to say take the next step, but not be a bottom basement team. I think they have a lot of work still to do. They still have a really good defense. It's going to keep them in games. But they've taken that step with the coaching change, obviously with a lot of the guys on offense, as far as coaches and as far as players. And I think the draft really kind of helped them take that next step forward as far as being able to put together a team that isn't going to roll over and die, can be competitive, and look bright towards the future.
Yeah, I think so as well. Incredibly good stuff for the Patriots and the Bucs there. Mr. J-Lo, I know you're gnawing at the bit. Why don't you jump in and ask the great JC something as well?
Yeah, JC, thank you for coming on, doing the show. I always appreciate your knowledge of the game and all your writing you put out there for Sports Illustrated. Thank you very much. The one I do have to ask you is, what's your projection if you feel comfortable for the Bucs starting offensive line? What's your projection? Because to me, it's Barden at center, obviously. Then you got Mock and Gedeke to the right. Left, you got Tristan. What's your left guard starting position if you have a jet right now? Way too early. If you feel comfortable answering that question.
Yeah, I mean, you can look at and kind of piece it out, right? So the Bucs drafted Barton as a center. They want him to be the center. I mean, that's realistically. So again, there's that scenario where the best 5 is with Robert Hainsey at center and him at guard. But I think if the Bucs, what they would want to see happen, I'm sure, is you have Barton at center, you have Moak at right guard, Gedeke at right tackle, Wirfs at left tackle, and I think they'd like to see Sua Pita win that job as far as like a bridge year. And then I really think they're a lot higher on Elijah Klein than a lot of people probably would be a 6th round pick, just because of the fit in the system, B, his tenacity, his toughness, his IQ, all the things that he kind of brings to the table, I think can come up for some of his shortcomings, especially when you're paired in between a guy like Barton and Wirfs. So I think they'd like to see Opita win this job. I think they signed Bredesen as competition more for Hainsey at center, who's a guy who's flexible, can play both guard spots as well. And once they drafted Barton, I think that kind of pushed them. Okay, well, you're going to compete for the guard spot and backup center spot. So I think they'd like to see Opita win that job. I think they'd be more than thrilled to see Elijah win that job. But I think I had to go 5 now. Again, I still think there's a really strong possibility in the world that Haynes is your center. Again, I know they want to get bigger in the middle, and they would love Barton to be there, but you got to go with your best 5. And I don't know if Opita, Bredesen, or Elijah are going to be better than what you can get with Hainsey at center and Graham at guard. So, but I think in a perfect world, they like to see that kind of play out where Barton is at center and maybe Opita's starting left guard.
Yeah, and that's what that's what I was thinking too. I'm sorry, Tom, not to cut you off, but there's one thing I want to ask JC. If you're okay with that, Tones.
No, go ahead.
Overruled. Tones is overruled.
Yeah, I'm overruled. Let's go, J-Lo. Chop, chop.
No, I'm saying, but the tight end position, we drafted the tight end Colt from Washington. What's so special about him? Is he a blocking tight end, or is he more of an athletic tight end? Kind of like a Payne Durham. Like, do you feel like O'Keefe could be a danger losing his spot on the roster for Colt? Okay, I'm not saying
absolutely. I think O'Keefe has shown you that he can be a great blocker and even better, a great special teamer. But he's shown you that he has no hands. And you can't have it's hard to take up, even how good you are at special teams. It's hard for a person to take up a spot that can only do one thing. Payne Durham, I think he can become a better blocker. We saw him make some spectacular catches. I think they'll have packages more now that he's remember, it took him for a while to even be activated. He was inactive for the first couple of weeks of the season, kind of learning it. But now he's got a full year in the NFL. He's getting a full offseason in the strength and conditioning program, and he's getting, some carryover from the last offense to Cohen's offense. So he should be in a much better spot to make contributions because last year they didn't trust anybody. K-Don played 98% of the snaps. He went wall to wall a bunch of times. They didn't trust anyone to go in there. So, and certainly not a guy like O'Keefe. And I like O'Keefe a lot. I think he brings a certain scrappiness to this team. Unless they keep 4 tight ends, I think he's in jeopardy. And Culp isn't a blocker at all, really. I mean, he's very willing. He'll get his nose dirty, but he's not going to be able to hold up against, the Micah Parsons of the world and, big offensive linemen looping around and stuff like that. He's not going to do it. He's more of a guy that you flex out into the slot, flex out wide, and try to create mismatches against linebackers and cornerbacks that way for a guy with his size and his speed. I mean, they ran a 4.47 as a tight end, as a big target. I think he's 6'3", 230 something pounds. 6'3", 231 pounds, running a 4.47 40. He's got he can elevate to make contested catches. He runs sharp routes, crisp cuts. He gets consistent separation from defenders. His blocking is not great. He'll be a 24-year-old rookie and had some bad drops, but I think given a certain packages and a certain role for him, I think he can be a guy that they can trot out in certain looks and make some good plays for the team through the passing game. So again, he's not going to be a blocker at all. You have to really hope that we saw Otten improve over that, over the course of the season, get a lot better at the end. In the beginning of the year, he was unplayable as a blocker. But he got a lot better towards the end. Another year in the strength and conditioning program. Remember, if we go back 2 years ago, I didn't think Otten was going to be able to, I didn't think he was going to play right away because I thought he needed to get his weight up and his strength up. And he ended up playing a lot his rookie season and then come back and obviously play almost the entire season. barely missing any time. So another year with strength and conditioning. I think he's going to be better in blocking, better technique, coaching. He's going to get different coaching too now that they have Carberry there on the line instead of Coach Gilbert and Goody. So he'll be getting different pointers and technique from different offensive line coach when it comes to blocking. And they have a new tight ends coach too. So, that will factor into it. And then I think you'll see a jump from Payne Durham as well. And then it's going to be a battle for that third spot between Culp and Keefe. Then it all depends on what they want. Again, Cohen said he wanted to move tight end in this offense. They got to move tight end in this offense. He's a 7th round pick. Cole Keefe was only a 6th round pick. So we'll see what they value more. Is that a blocking tight end / H-back fullback type, or is that a guy who can be moved all over the field and potentially be a mismatch weapon?
Yeah, JC, and I know we have our hands full enough with the draft picks we made, with the depth chart competitions, but real quickly dipping into the UDFA pool, undrafted free agents. They've played such a crucial part around the league, but more specifically Tampa the past couple of years. I mean, you had Christian Izzian, Devin Tompkins, Rakeem Jarrett, Marquis Swats of late. And then if you look at the Super Bowl year, you had Nick Leverett, you had Javon Hagan, and those types of UDFAs playing big roles in the NFL. Chase McLaughlin got a big contract from the Bucs. He was a UDFA a couple years back. This year we got guys like Marcus Banks, a corner from Mississippi State. We got a legacy in Judge Culpepper from Toledo, quarterback Zach Ennickstad from Illinois State, and a lot more as well. Anything in the UDFA pool stick out to you so far, JC? Anything that jumps off the board at you, or any of these guys that may turn into the next Devin Tompkins or the next Nick Leverett or the next Christian Izzian and stick around as a UDFA?
I think there's a couple names to watch. Florida State fans will like the name Kalen DeLoach. Undersized guy at only 5'11", 210. But I asked Larry Foote today, what do you like about him? And he said he's the modern NFL linebacker. You kind of look what he did over his career with 11 sacks, 7 of them last year, forced fumble return for a touchdown, 4.47 40. So he's a fast guy who can make plays. That 4th linebacker spot is kind of up for grabs right now. And you always are looking for, especially with the new kickoff rules, you're looking for more linebackers and tight end type body styles to be on kickoff and punt. That's what you look for. So right now they have Levante, KJ Britt, and Servassier Dennis. JJ Russell was really good and really came on, and he'll be factored into this mix as well for linebacker. But if someone's going to kind of come in and unseat JJ Russell or something, Kalen DeLoach is a guy I've got my eyes on for sure. Antonio Greer is another guy from Arkansas. He was the same guy. He was a slower guy, 4'6'3", but bigger, 6'1", 230. Had 10 sacks in his career, 23.5 tackles for loss, forced fumbles, interception, 2 defensive touchdowns, 3 interceptions. So, I mean, he's a guy, strong guy, physical, 22 bench press reps. So he's the guy I look at to say, okay, you've got 2, you didn't draft any linebackers, but you've got 2 guys that can make an impact. Another spot I kind of talk about, right? These are the same free agent spots I was talking about, linebacker and safety. A guy like Rashad Wisdom, the safety out of Texas El Paso, or University of Texas San Antonio, rather. He's a little smaller size, 5'9", 210. He'll compete at that safety / nickel cornerback, which is going to be highly contested. And he's another guy, he's 4 sacks, can get down in the box, 4 forced fumbles, interceptions, 5 interceptions, 15 pass deflections, 13 tackles for loss. He's another one of these guys that you can kind of play everywhere. Marcus Banks is a corner, but they could use him at safety too, 6 foot, 190. He didn't have a ton of ball production. Not a lot of production at all, especially coming from a smaller school. Only 1 interception, 5 pass deflection. Had that fumble recovery for a touchdown. But the guy's got good speed, 4.45 40-yard dash. Really good broad jump and vertical jump. Another guy strong. He'll compete kind of in that nickel / safety role that they're cross training all these guys at. Chris McDonald, another cornerback, 5'10", 182. It's going to be a dogfight for that slot cornerback position. And then you kind of mentioned him, Judge Culpepper, defensive tackle. I think he's the guy who is the guy who can kind of compete for that spot. Is Mike Green got a death grip on that final spot on the roster? I don't think so. They didn't draft anybody. They got CJ Brewer, who played in the UFL last year or XFL last year, that came back, and a couple other guys, guy from Canada, Lowe, Ugalak or whatever, Louis, as Coach Casey Rogers calls him, but productive, 13.5 sacks, 19 for a loss. He can get in the backfield. Decent 40 for a guy his size at 5'15". So those are some of the guys I think that can maybe, show up and make some plays. But unfortunately, that's going to do it for me, though, guys. I've got a prior obligation, which is I'm jumping on Audibles Analytics with Capo and Ledyard, so it should be a good time.
Yeah, so you're moving up in the world, whatever. But no, I'm kidding. I appreciate your great time, JC, and I actually saw you chirping on Twitter earlier with those cats. I'm very excited for that one. You three are fantastic guys, but whether it's Culpepper, Mayana Hanatu, or JCL, and we love our legacies around here. And if you guys are wondering how is JC a legacy, because he's the head of the table. He's part of the bloodline. So the great JCL and the man of many words, the final boss, some might call him. JC, we surely do appreciate it. Feel free to leave any last plugs on your way out, brother.
Yeah, as always, guys, follow me at JCL and NFL. I am your one-stop shop for everything Bucs, whether it's my content, podcast, whether I'm digging for gold, looking for what people are saying, highlights, clips, what these players are saying, retweeting, tweeting about, what the Bucs are posting. You really don't have to go anywhere. It's all right there on my page. It's all right there on my feed. So give me a follow there. Just cracked 5K, almost at 5,100 after a successful draft weekend. So, kind of excited about that. Keep climbing the ladder there. Getting my coverage spread out to more Bucs fans. That's what it's all about, is giving you guys the best Bucs coverage. And you can find some of that over at Bucs Game Day. You can find it at the Pirate Parlay podcast, and you can find me over at Here the Cannons podcast. Remember, we got Rashad White tomorrow. I'll be having my podcast, Pirate Parlay, tomorrow, midday, somewhere around there. We'll be recapping the draft, and like, subscribe, turn the notifications on. As always, Tones, it's always a pleasure. Honcho, J-Lo, you guys know how I feel about y'all. And,
Yeah, JC. Go have fun in that triple threat. Take it easy on Josh and Ledyard for us. We don't need them missing any time with K-Fob injuries or something like that. So we're looking forward to listening to that. Thanks again, JC. You're the man.
Thank you, JC. Talk to y'all later. Appreciate it.
Talk to you later, brother. That is the great JC Allen over at SI Bucs Game Day Pirate Parlay podcast. Guys, he's just incredible. I don't really think we got to talk about any more of the Bucs draft. It's, he pretty much nailed it to a T, J-Lo.
I mean, shout out to JC Allen. He also does work with JP Peterson on the JP Peterson show. I catch live.
He's everywhere.
Content. He's everywhere. I mean, he's out there promoting, for a Boston fan, for a Patriot, Bruins fan, whatever. At the end of the day, he covers everything. I learned a lot from him the last 2 or 3 years, listening to and watching him, from him climbing the ladder. So shout out to JC. I'm glad he came on the show. The man's very knowledgeable. He knows his football.
Last couple questions there on the Buccateers. You guys are with Huncho, J-Lo, Tampa Tones. The great JC Allen just left. He has prior obligations to be the head of the table in a triple threat match, but us three are still here for a couple more minutes. You guys are watching on YouTube, Facebook, and you guys can catch a replay on Apple, Spotify, Google, so much more. Gonna ask you guys different questions here. Huncho, we'll start with you. Not including the Buccaneers, Hunch. Who was your least favorite pick in the 2024 NFL draft? Any round, any team. Huncho, the floor is yours. Least favorite pick of the draft, not counting the Bucs.
Well, I mean, I'm pretty much going to state the obvious here. We all know who tends to mess up when it's time to swing big. And they did it once again with the 8th pick in the draft. And they drafted Michael Penix For some strange reason, I guess
Big
some get
Penix
it.
energy.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, but I don't get it because if you felt like that was your
I don't
guy,
get
you
it.
had
I'm
months.
gonna be nice. I don't get it, or I'm not gonna be nice. I don't get it at all, Hunch. I just don't.
Exactly. This is what I'm saying. So if this was gonna be your guy, you didn't know this months prior. So why would you sign Kirk Cousins to 100 million guaranteed?
Thank
Even
you.
if he is the future. Now, if he succeeds 2-3 years and everything works out, we're still going to talk about why did you have to pay Kirk Cousins 100 mil if you had a guy right there. It's just a lose-lose. But I'm not gonna say I agree with it, but I can see why they did it, but it doesn't validate why they did it. It doesn't add up. It just doesn't make sense when you're paying 100 million. And I could just think of the friction that it's gonna draw in the locker room and the fan base when Kirk Cousins has a few bad games. They're gonna be calling for Michael Penix, and it's gonna be a shit show over there in Atlanta. And I just can't wait to see it all unfold.
And they still have Taylor Heineke. They're paying him still $5-6
Yeah,
million a year.
yeah, 5 million. It's just a bad organization makes bad decisions, man.
So they're gonna have the highest paid ever third string QB in Taylor Heineke. They're gonna have one of the highest paid overrated QBs ever in Kirk Cousins. And then they're gonna have Michael Penix. Now I think it's a lose for everybody. If you're Taylor Heineke, you have no chance of getting on the field now. Absolutely none. You might as well ask for a trade. Okay? If you're Michael Penix, you're already an old rookie. Nothing against that.
Mhm.
But now, you're wasting your prime. You're wasting your prime.
Right.
This is the NFL. You don't get these years back. Just because you're not playing, you don't borrow. It's not a bank. You don't say, oh, I'm going to put these 2 years in the bank. Let me get them back later. No. I know you're not absorbing contact. I know you might not get hurt because you might not play a lot, Michael Penix. But now you're wasting your damn career. You're wasting your career. And to you, Kirk Cousins, to you,
freeloader,
you must feel like an idiot. And I don't feel bad because you chased money, and this is what happens when you chase money. You had offers on the table from Minnesota, a team who spent millions after millions on you, a team who drafted you wide receiver year after year, a team who went out and traded for TJ Hawkinson, bent the knee with division rivals, had to go above and beyond. Oh, and they tried to lather you with the running back year after year, Delvin Cook, Alexander Madison. They traded for Cam Akers. You're an idiot, Kirk Cousins. You had a team that bent the knee for you. They did anything you wanted them to do. And just to make a couple 5-10 million extra a year, you act like a giant goofball idiot and you move to Atlanta. Oh, my wife's family's from Atlanta. I don't care.
It's such an
You know how overrated that sentiment is? No offense to family, but you're in the damn NFL. You could get a private jet anytime you want. You can make the trip anytime you want. Hell, Kirk, you'd have enough money in Minnesota to move your entire wife's family to Minnesota. You could have done that. Here, you rolled the dice. You moved to Atlanta. That dice roll was a fucking snake eye failure. And now you're going to be, like Huncho said, you make one bad pass, people are going to be on your ass for Michael Penix. And by the way, you're not going to win any sorts of rings in Atlanta now, brother. After seeing that draft, that coaching staff is very discombobulated, and it's very sad to see. J-Lo,
love the rent. I love the rent.
I'd scream more, but we got to get to greener pastures, get to brighter futures. Just fuck, man. I mean, thank God I'm not a Falcons fan. Fuck him. But J-Lo, from Huncho giving his worst pick of the draft, who would you say is your best pick of the draft, not including the Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
Best pick, if I had to choose, is Commanders with Jaden Daniels. You put a little weight on the man. I feel like he can lead this team to maybe not a Super Bowl, but maybe competitiveness in the division. Because to me, the Cowboys are kind of falling under a little bit. Giants will be Giants. So let's go ahead and say Philadelphia is going to be the toughest challenge in the division when it comes to the Commanders.
The
But
Commandos. I like their offseason.
I do. They had a great offseason, great draft, very underrated. But I do want to get back to honchos with who had the worst draft because it was kind of hit me hard. I'm going to go AFC in this one.
Well, not the worst draft, who had the worst pick of the draft.
Well, I'm saying worst pick, I'm sorry, is the Buffalo Bills. You traded out of your first round and you gave it to the Kansas City Chiefs to get Worthy. Worthy to me would have been a game changer in the Bills' offensive scheme. And you gave it away, not once, but twice, to two other teams. Not to pick on Keon Coleman. Keon Coleman, I feel like could be a contributor. But if I'm a betting man, if I was a Buffalo fan, because I want to get in this conversation pretty deeply, because I know you're pretty much laid it all out there with Atlanta. But Buffalo, how stupid are you? Why in the world would you trade out of your pick to give Kansas City one of the fastest receivers in the draft who can translate that speed to the game and Worthy? And that's twice they've done this between Patrick Mahomes and now Worthy. So here's my thing to Buffalo fans. If you're watching, I don't give a shit. Y'all deserve everything coming to you because you made the worst decision to give the Chiefs another weapon who they can utilize in their offense to trade down twice to get who? Keon Coleman. Keon Coleman can be a good receiver. Keyword, good. But to Worthy, no. I just want to get that off my chest because let me tell you something. Buffalo will not win another Super Bowl because they made dumb decisions like that. Like in the Chiefs, easy way to get Worthy. I'm not trying to say Worthy's the best receiver, but you put him in that offensive system with Patrick Mahomes, who we all know can sling the ball down the field, and you gave the Chiefs.
I'm going to be honest. I don't hate what Buffalo did, and I'm going to lay it out like this.
Go ahead.
Buffalo needed a lot of help. A lot of help. You look at their depth chart. This ain't your 2020, 2021 Buffalo Bills. This is a Buffalo Bills team that has many aging veterans, many holes on it, including the wide receiver position, okay? You look at their O-line, it's not the same. You look at their defense, they have a lot of money invested into Von Miller. That's obviously not paying off. I mean, let's be honest. This is a Buffalo team that needs a lot of help. What did Buffalo do? They looked at the board, and I agree. I mean, to guys like us, Worthy might be the good pick. But evidently to Buffalo, they had a lot of wide receivers ranked so highly that they felt comfortable with moving back. So, just because they have Keon Coleman higher than Worthy, maybe that could be true. I'm not sure. Maybe they could look foolish. Sure, I get it. Kansas City added a very fast guy, but Worthy wasn't the first wide receiver drafted either. So that means other teams who drafted wide receivers passed on Worthy as well. That includes Arizona, who went with Marvin Harrison, New York, who went with Malik Neighbors, Chicago, that went with Rome Odunze, Raiders went with Bowers. I know he's a tight end, but he could play wide receiver. Jaguars went with Brian Thomas Jr., and then the Chiefs went with Worthy. So I don't think he's as much of a slam dunk as some are slating him. And to be sure, he should be, but you never know with these fast guys. We've seen guys like Kevin White, Zallis Jones, and those types crap the pants before. And again, Keon Coleman had a first-round grade by some, so I'll be interested to see how it does play out. But J-Lo, I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just curious to see how it plays out. I don't think it's necessarily as bad of a blemish as it may seem on the surface.
And no, I just have to throw it out there. I mean, as a Bills fan, I'll be pretty upset with how they made the trade to our AFC rival because obviously the Chiefs.
Now that I could get. Now that I could get. because
and
they kind of helped the Chiefs.
no, they did. They helped them just as they did with Patrick Mahomes. I just want to throw that out there as far as that worst, pick in the draft. For the most part. I mean, that's like us training with.
So you're thinking maybe not pick because Keon Coleman fine, but you're thinking maybe worse move in the draft is what you're thinking.
Yes, I feel like Worth from Texas would be a better fit for Buffalo than a Keon Coleman, if you ask me. Because you and I both know, even Hunter can agree to this, that Allen can chuck you down the field, and you want a deep threat receiver. Because you just traded away Stephon Diggs to a Houston Texans team that's coming up on the rise. Now, pretty much your best receiver is Keon Coleman because Gabe Davis went to Jacksonville. If you know what I mean, and I'm just trying to put it out there for Buffalo fans, and the Buffalo organization. What were you doing?
Yeah, and they also added guys like Curtis Samuel, Andy Isabella, Mac Hollins, KJ Hamler, Quintus Cephas, a lot of number 2, 3, 4 wide receivers. They do have Khalil Shakir. And, they did draft Dalton Kincaid to complement Dawson Knox a year ago. So their offense will be interesting. James Cook, they drafted Ray Davis. They have Ty Johnson as well. And they have a lot of new faces. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. Speaking of new faces, the Bucs announced their rookie class numbers today. They did it pretty quickly, pretty early, in my opinion, and it goes as followed. Graham Barton is 62. Braswell is 43. Tyke Smith is 23. McMillan is 15. Bucky Irving 7. Klein is 79. And Culp is 82. UDFAs will come at a later time. Speaking of later time, we're going to be doing a bear draft for the fans, by the fans, led by the great Gene from the Buck What You Heard, who couldn't join us tonight due to internet troubles and difficulties. But we are going to have our bear draft to determine the 2024 bear of the Buccateers and the Buck What You Heard podcast throughout the year. We do want to thank those joining us on Facebook right now as well. Tyler Sharp, Leo Montavo, El Monito, Rochelle, all joining us. Fantastic stuff there. And we'll just go ahead before we get to the final word. We'll start with J-Lo. J-Lo, what jersey number on a newcomer Buck do you like the most? If you had to get one jersey out of the group, who would you get? Or what number do you think is the coolest?
I like Bucky Irving, number 7. I think he'll be the better number 7. I like that number a lot. I feel like he's going to definitely make some changes to that position. So give me Bucky Irving at number 7.
Hunch, where you heading? Graham Barton, Braswell, Culp, Klein, out of all the newcomer jersey numbers, who would you nab?
I'm thinking Tyke Smith just because he has the 23. I love that number for numerous. Yeah, it's a lot of reasons I like 23, and I just think he breaks the curse of people that wear that number 23 this year because, as you know, that's been a horrible number people played in Bucs history. So if that's going to be that, I'll take – and I get to see a Smith actually do some good work actually on this team. You know what I'm saying? So I like that. And I like the 15, McMillan. 15 is one of my favorite numbers. So one of those two. You could go either way.
I like McMillan with 15 because it's kind of cool now, right? You got Godwin 13. Godwin 14, Evans 13, McMillan 15, right?
Right.
They're all kind of in a row, the 13 through 15 right there. So that's pretty cool. Then I love Klein.
I mean, we had a 12. We had a 12 too, but he's gone. But moving forward.
Well, Godwin counts as 12 and 14. Then you got Klein and number 79. I think if he does start next to Worse, that would look cool. You'd have 78, 79 right next to each other on that left side of that O-line. So I think that'd be pretty fun stuff. Speaking of fun stuff, you guys could catch us Thursday. Hunch, we'll get you in here in a second. Thursday, we'll be back, led by Gene and Buck What You Heard. We're going to be having a great Dolphins guest join us, talking all things football as well. So time to be announced, but Buccateers, Buck What You Heard, will be back Thursday. Before our final word, Hunch, did you have a word?
Yeah, it was more so about the numbers, but it's all right. It's fine.
What? Cook it up.
It was about it's drying. It's a joke, but yeah,
All right, yeah, you're done. Skip next.
Next.
Next, it's like the grocery, you know, when you take a number at the meat line and you get called and looking around, you know, you're talking to your neighbor or something. Next, all right, next. No, I'm kidding, Hunch, but feel free, never be afraid to rip at him. Speaking of rip at him, J-Lo, final word time. We talked all things UDFAs, Bucs draft picks, depth chart. We had the great JC Allen on to help us out with all that and so much more. We'll get more into it on Thursday as well, I'm sure, when we're back. And Saturday as well, we'll be back on the Buccateers too. So Thursday, Saturday, set your DVRs. No, I'm just kidding. Set your TiVos. No, I'm just kidding. J-Lo, whether it's TiVos or Tebow, what's your final word, brother?
Final word is to thank you to Tones and the family for making me feel welcome in the Illinois area. It was very fun. I enjoyed Naperville, Chicago.
The dab? That was the dab? That's crazy. Okay, I'm listening.
I mean, they know how to party, man. Hey,
most definitely.
No, they know how to party. Him and his brother Joey and the family know how to party.
Mama Tones?
Tones is the man. Like I said, thank you for just being the awesome person you are. You know, teaching me the knowledge of the game and everything I learned from you in podcasting. Thank you so much. And Honcho, like I said, you're my brother from another mother, brother. Hopefully we'll get to
yes, sir.
We'll get to catch up soon.
Yes, sir.
Our baby in the background. God bless you, brother.
I think Huncho has to go change a diaper or something.
No. That ain't my job. That's my niece son. So, hey, it's not my job.
Oh, well, I know you're pushing Phillip Rivers, so, you know, I just...
Phillip Rivers ain't got shit on me, baby boy.
Oh, damn.
No, he don't, because there's only one Huncho, and, well, maybe, I mean, I guess there's 8 or 9 of you. But regardless, Hunch, we love you, brother, and what's your final word besides the crying?
Man, yeah, y'all stay safe, stay blessed. I love the content. Can't wait to Thursday to get Gene back on here. Hopefully his Wi-Fi returns before then. And yeah, that baby's going crazy. So yeah, I love y'all. Stay safe.
Oh, we got babies everywhere. We got Gracie. We got Huncho screaming in the background. Hey, there we go. Go Bucs. That's awesome. Oh, Richard says, welcome back. Thank you, Richard. I appreciate that. Mexico treated me well. I mean, if you could see, I'm burnt like a crisp. So, you know, it's time, though. It's time. We're getting babies. We're getting taken over by the youngins here, which is a beautiful thing to see. We got the youngest Buccateer co-host in the house. Hey, we got another young Buck in the house. We got all sorts of Bucks in the house. Young, hungry Bucks. Youngry Bucks, we'll call them. Go Bucs, the great J-Lo family, the great Huncho family. I don't have any little ones to show besides myself. So I'm a big little one, though. That's all there is to it. Beautiful family and friends and everything in between. J-Lo, Huncho, it was a beautiful Tuesday. God bless both of you guys and your families. Until Thursday, we'll be back here on the Buccateers. Fire the dang cannons. Go Bucs. Touchdown Tampa Bay. Until Thursday. Give us one more Go Bucs, J-Lo. There we go. All three of you guys have a beautiful night. Have a great night. Huncho, have a great night. Thank you again to the great JC Allen for joining us as well. It was awesome. Thanks, everybody. God bless. Fire the damn cannons. Go Bucs. Touchdown Tampa Bay. Bucky Irvin up the middle.
Amen.
Game on Sunday, man. I know you're nervous for the Rams, but you got to be a little enthusiastic after being there.
Bro, that game atmosphere was ridiculous. The energy, the electricity. That place was rocking. Anyone was there, and a lot of the Super Buck fans were there too.
Tampa Tones. We are joined by lead Goon tonight, host of the Pat and Aaron Show of WDAE, Pat Donovan. And it sounds like Stunna is bumbling a little bit. Going to put him on mute for a second until that gets a little clear. But we're joined by Pat
It looks like
Donovan.
Stunna's hanging out with Cheech and Chong in a car with the windows up or something over there.
It does